Pick a move in the ring. You can hit me with the words you fling.
Hey guys, what's up? It's Nick Akin. This is South China Morning Post in Hong Kong. This is a very special episode of Post Fight because we got none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Daniel Cormier, former UFC two-weight champion. The champ's in the house. DC, what's up, man?
What's going on, boys? How you guys doing?
Yeah, we're really good, man. Thanks so much for joining us. It's so awesome to talk to you. A real bucket list thing for me as an MMA journalist to speak to you, DC. First of all, though, how was your Christmas? As a retired fighter, your first Christmas, were you able to indulge a little bit more?
Well, I just kind of did the same thing. Normally if I didn't have a fight scheduled right around the holidays, I indulged as much as I wanted to indulge anyways, It was good though. Got to spend time with my family, got my kids gifts, and it was cool. It was fun.
All right, and I've got to first of all just get your pick, fight of the year and fighter of the year. Who have you got?
I've been very clear on this one. Joanna Jacek and Zhang Weili for me was the fight of the year. I called that fight, and immediately after I called that fight, I went and did a detail on that fight because there were so many little things that played during the fight between those two fantastic fighters. It had everything, right? The ebbs and flows of a great championship fight. Both women laid it all out on the line. Early in the fight, it seemed like Joanna was doing well. Then Weili kind of took the lead. Joanna seemed to catch her second breath earlier. Weili seemed to be fading. But in the fifth round, we saw that Weili has all the ability, and not only the ability to grit and the toughness to reign atop that division for a long time, because when it looked like it was going in the opposite direction, she was able to steer the ship right and win the fight. Fighter of the year for me is going to be none other than Deuce de Guerra, Deiveson Figueiredo, the flyweight champion of the world. Listen, he beat Joseph Benavidez, should have become the champ, but because he didn't make weight, didn't get the belt, went on the fight island and smashed Joe B in the rematch, got the title, defended the title in spectacular fashion against Alex Perez. And then 3 weeks later, a month later, he defends the belt again in a fight of the year candidate against Brandon Moreno. I mean, I don't know how anyone could question whether or not Deiveson Figueiredo deserves to be the fighter of the year.
All right, and I've just got to also get your prediction for that huge fight that's coming up, UFC 257 next month. I imagine you're going to be there, Fight Island. Conor McGregor against Dustin Poirier II, the rematch. Who you got?
Oh, well, I'm calling the fight. So let me tell you something. Me getting to call the fights have saved me from having to pick fights because I'm not allowed to. So it's like I don't have to pick the fight because of me calling them. And also it saves me having to deal with the fighters because they're so sensitive when it comes to whether or not you pick them. It's like everybody's like, oh, DC, I saw you picked against me. God forbid you pick against one guy and then he wins because then he throws right in your face. So I'm lucky. I call the fight, so I don't have to pick them no more. So that's one thing you don't get out of me.
That's fair enough. One more for me before I throw it to John over there. Just you mentioned it after his fight against Justin Gaethje. You said if Khabib says he's retiring, he means it. Do you think he's coming back for one more? Dana thinks he can talk him around.
Man, it makes it very difficult, when I have to answer these questions because why the UFC wants him back. You should. Everybody wants him back. But the reality is I just take my buddy at his word. If he says he's not fighting, then he's not fighting. If he says he's coming back, then he's coming back. The reality is, I just care about Khabib the person. I don't really care if he's fighting or if he's not fighting. Of course, I would love for him to fight. It's always fun to watch him prepare and watch him compete. It'd be great for the UFC if he did compete again. But if he doesn't, I'd still, care and love the guy as much as I do as an active competitor.
Fair enough. All right, John, what have you got?
Oh, of course, going into 257, Khabib, you just mentioned him. He's your friend. He's a champion. But the big talk is what happens to the title, right? And Khabib just recently did an interview with Match TV, and it says that the winner of McGregor-Poirier could eventually succeed him as the UFC lightweight champion. He's retired. What's the right call? Do you think that's the right call, or is there other fighters that are worthy of a chance at the title?
Well, you heard what he said. He thinks that they could eventually succeed him. I think he listed 3 guys: Conor, Dustin, and Islam Makhachev. He thinks those are the top 3 guys in the weight class. And I don't think he said they were going to give his title to that winner in January. I think he was saying down the line, he thinks that these 3 guys are probably in the running or should be considered the lead for that belt. But let's not forget about Charles Oliveira. I mean, after what he did to Tony Ferguson, this dude is the real deal. So I think that you add him to the mix. But I think that Khabib's spot on. Who knows the division better than the guy that is the champion and has been the champ for the last couple of years? So, I think those guys are at the top of the heap in terms of who's going to challenge for that title very soon.
Hypothetically, who would you like to see challenge for that title if Khabib steps away?
I mean, come on, man. I'm a homer. Islam Makhachev, Islam Makhachev, I truly do, but not only because he's one of my friends and teammates, but I really believe that Islam Makhachev is as talented as anyone in the world. And he does have the fighting style to present a lot of problems for people. I think that because of the way that he came into the UFC, he had that loss to Adriano Martins way back in the day in his second UFC fight. And he doesn't really jump off the page as much as Khabib does, right? His style doesn't seem as aggressive, but trust me, he has all the same abilities. And in the stand-up, he's very, very well-rounded and very skilled in that area of mixed martial arts. And as you guys saw early in Khabib's career, he struggled there, right? He's he wasn't polished. He's much more polished today. Islam is there already and ready to really, truly make a run at the top of the division. But, those guys are tough. Oliveira's tough. And, Islam has a very difficult fight in front of him when he fights Drew Dober in his next appearance.
Zhang Weili, she's coming off that incredible fight at 248. You called the fight. You saw it cage side. It's incredible. A lot of people thought that Joanna won that fight. It was a very close fight. Do you want to see the Joanna rematch, or should Thug Rose take the title shot next?
I think Rose Namajunas deserves a title fight. She has, she was the champion. She beat Joanna, and she's won fights to put herself back into that pole position. Would I have a problem with a Joanna Jędrzejczyk rematch? No. But I think I saw Joanna speak very recently about not really having – I think she wants to fight for the belt but doesn't feel like it's a possibility right now. And I think when that's the case for a person that's fought at the top of the sport for such a long time, the desire to be in there right away isn't as strong. And I think that's where Joanna is today. She's thinking about – she almost alluded to things that outside of fighting that are so important to her life right now. And I don't know exactly what that is because I haven't spoken to her about it. But it does not seem like fighting for that title is the number one priority. And honestly, Rose does deserve it after that impressive win over Jessica Andrade. And look at how Jessica Andrade looked at going at 125. So I think Rose deserves a title fight. I think that's a fantastic fight.
Do you think Jessica Andrade, she earned a title shot with that knockout victory?
It's so weird at 125, right? Because you have a long-reigning champion in Valentina Shevchenko who has really beaten everybody very convincingly, right? And to have won the fight against Jędrzejczyk in the way that she did to win the championship. The other performance that what she did to Jessica was crazy. What she did to Caitlin Chukagian was crazy. What she did in her flyweight debut was insane. It was brutal to watch. We celebrated her last fight against what's the gal's name? The gal that she just fought. I can't remember.
Maia.
Jennifer Maia. We celebrated Jennifer Maia because she won a round. That's how dominant Valentina Shevchenko has been. When you look at a champion from a weight class down and you think, oh, wow, maybe something new, maybe Andrade and the forward style that she fights with can provide some problems. It's exciting. But there are fighters in that weight class that have been in there and have put together long win streaks. But the reality is, when you look at the matchups and you look at fighters like Lauren Murphy, who's on a win streak, and Cynthia Calvillo just lost to Caitlin Chukagian, but she was looking at a title fight. When you look at Lauren Murphy, you wonder, what type of challenges does it seem like she can provide for Valentina that Caitlin or Jessica didn't? And it's hard to see. But when you look at Jessica Andrade, someone new, someone strong, someone with a physical style, forward going style, you think that excites you. So I would prefer that matchup at 125 if I was to make that call.
It looks like Volkanovski and Ortega are going to face off in early 2021. Cater Holloway is in January 16th. That only leaves the Korean Zombie, a fan favorite, all around the world. What do you do with him? Do you have him fight Zabit, or is the Yair rematch something that you would like to see?
Well, I like the Korean Zombie. I was in Abu Dhabi for his fight against Brian Ortega, which was crazy because no one would have ever guessed Brian Ortega would look like that in the stand-up in that fight. But for the Zombie, the guy's been in so many big fights, that he doesn't really know what can excite him outside of something big. And that would be a fight with a guy like Zabit. And when you're the Korean Zombie and a guy that's been around the top of the sport for a long time on the cusp of a title shot, obviously with Ortega getting it, you start thinking about what would be the fastest route back to a championship. That would be a win over Zabit Magomed Sharipov. But that's a tough fight. It's a very difficult fight for anyone. And it will be a tough fight for the Zombie.
What do you think the criticism that Zabit takes for not fighting 5 rounds? Do you think that's legit?
Well, I mean, you can only base that off of what you saw. In the fight with Calvin Kattar, when the fight went long, it did seem like Calvin Kattar was fighting better as the fight went longer. So you only base these things off of the information that's available to you. And the information showed that when Calvin Kattar was able to extend him in a tough fight, he slowed down. But do I think for a second that's going to be a knock on Zabit going forward? No. I think that he's going to adjust and correct whatever issues he was having in the Calvin Kattar fight. I don't know if there were injuries. I don't know what was going on at that time, but he did slow down as it went longer.
AKA Kane's retired, you're retired, Khabib maybe retired, Rockhold maybe retired. You guys are all former champions or champions. Who is likely the next champions coming out of AKA besides Islam?
Yeah, we've got some let me tell you something, man. When you retire guys like that, I always say we were the 3 kings of AKA, me, Luke, and Kane, and we went to the moon. And then Khabib became the king of all kings, right? He went and took this thing to another level, of international superstardom. And to replace that is very daunting for any gym. I don't think a gym could replace what we built at AKA. But not only us, the John Fitches and Josh Koscheck's and Josh Thompson's and Mike Swick and all those guys before us, it would be very difficult to recreate what we had. But we have a number of young fighters that are very talented, young wrestlers that we were trying to rebuild into champions, starting with guys like Kyle Crutchmer, who's won 6 of his 7 fights, lost a bad decision in Bellator last. They robbed him. It was as clear as can be. Deron Wynn's a talented young fighter. Nick Piccinini, who has not made his pro debut yet, is a guy that has a ton of talent. Mark Klomako is a very tough young kid at 125 pounds. Umar Nurmagomedov is very tough. There are a lot of guys, that are coming from Russia, guys that are here in the United States that are ready to take the lead and trying to keep our team at the forefront. Because the one thing that the American Kickboxing Academy has done for a long time has been at the top. We've always had guys fighting for championships, Koss and Fitch, and then guys winning championships. So don't think for a second that that's going to stop.
Yeah, I recently did a poll on Twitter about if MMA was like other professional sports and you could root for a team, AKA came out on top with the fans.
Yeah. Well, we were fighting the championship fights for a decade. For a decade now straight, we've always had a world champion. And that's special. That's a credit to our coaches, Javier Mendez and Leandro Vera, Bob Cook, Rosendo Sanchez, Rudy Cruz, Ron Kessler, and everybody else that's played a part in helping the guys get to the level that we've gotten to.
All right, one more question before I swing it back to Nick. Was it McGregor versus Poirier? McGregor knocked out Poirier in the first fight. Do you feel like there is a psychological advantage heading into a rematch when you knocked out the other person that badly?
I think when you lose a fight and you go into fighting, I mean, I know a lot about it, right? I fought Rumble twice. I fought Jones twice. I fought Stipe 3 times. Like, I fought 7 of my 25 fights against 3 dudes, right? So I think any fighter can convince himself that he just got caught. And I think that's what Dustin's going to have to rely on in order to give himself a chance. Difficult to forget, but you want to remember it and use it to motivate you to do better in the rematch.
All right, yeah, like John said, like you just said, DC, actually, Jon Jones, Stipe Miocic, that could be something we see maybe in 2021. Jon Jones going up to heavyweight. You know both men very well. How do you think Jon's going to do in the heavyweight division? Do you think he might have to go through a contender first, or maybe they'll give him a title shot off the bat?
I think he's going to get a title fight, and I don't see anything wrong with that. I think that for all that he's accomplished over the course of his career, if anyone is deserving of an immediate title shot, it's Jon Jones. And I do believe that when he gets to heavyweight and he's competing there, he's going to be very successful. I've competed with the guy on a couple of occasions and felt him and seen him and experienced his skill level. And I do believe that with the skill that he possesses, with the fighting style, and honestly, the guy's smart. He's a very smart fighter in there. I think that he can take that and it will translate to him being successful at heavyweight.
And another one that just happened overnight, really, Leon Edwards, it looks like he's stuck again without a fight. Khamzat Chimaev looks like he's pulled out if reports are true. What would you do with Leon Edwards? Because it's been so long. It's coming up 1.5 years, I think, now since he had a fight.
I mean, I don't know. A lot of guys are matched up. Even on that same night, I think you had Chiesa versus Neil Magny. That takes away 2 opponents that he could have fought. I don't know what you do with Leon Edwards now. I mean, you would hope that the guy, just as a human being, can get a matchup. It's weird, right, when you think of Leon Edwards, because when he was going to fight Tyron Woodley in England, they were there. They were there. They were on the ground, ready to compete, and then the pandemic hits. And it's like, okay, the fight canceled. Everybody's going home. It's like, so you kind of feel bad for the guy in that sense. So you would hope that they find the matchup for him. And if I know the UFC, they're doing everything in their power to try to make it happen for him.
And just a couple of quick ones from me. I just wanted to ask you, John was talking about AKA. How do you think your buddy Buchecha is going to fare in MMA? He's going to be competing in one championship. Looks like he might fight Rung. How do you think, you've rolled with him on the mats. What's he going to do in MMA?
Buchecha is very talented. I think he'll do fine. He's one of the best grapplers I've ever felt in my life. And he's so strong. He's so physically gifted, man, that if he's able to transition or translate a little bit of that grappling knowledge into getting takedowns, getting these fights on the ground extended, and developing the stand-up, he'll be good to go. He's as talented as they come. He's motivated, driven, and wants to be very good at this.
And I just had to get your thoughts. My guy, Sasha Palatnikov from Hong Kong. You watched him debut against Louis Cote. How far do you think he can go in the UFC?
I thought he did well. I mean, he was a massive underdog going into that fight. And it seemed like the matchup was all wrong for him, right? A wrestler, a guy that wants to push an insane pace. Sasha taking the fight on short notice. It just seemed like all the things were in place for him to be unsuccessful. But not only did he win the fight, he did it in an impressive fashion. He was able to secure the bonus, get the finish, and truly make a splash in his UFC debut. The sky's the limit for a guy like that. Obviously, when you're younger and you're just getting started, there are holes, but once you shore up those holes, there's no limit to what he can do.
All right, I think we are about out of time. I don't want to keep you too long, DC. I just want to say thank you so much, Daniel Cormier. It's been a real pleasure talking to you for me and John. Real awesome chat. Thank you so much, and can't wait to hear you back in the commentary booth, mate.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Hey guys, Sasha Palatnikov here, letting you know to tune in to SCMP post-fight for all your weekly martial arts news.